Hey guys, I'm Amadale78 from Broken Continuity, and this is One Shot, where I go over a single character or concept in comics. Today, I'm talking about the MCU Villains. Now, before we get started, let me just say that the comment section is gonna be there, so before you go to tell me how stupid I am, just go ahead and give this a listen. I don't believe that there's a villain problem in the MCU, and here's why. First, just from a comics perspective, I think we're kinda giving villains too much credit. I mean, there are a lot of crappy villains out there. People thought Baron Strucker was wasted, but when you look at it, he's just another cat villain. Someone associated with the Nazis or Hydra who's got some type of super soldier-esque serum, and he hates Captain America. To make it less specific, a majority of villains either want money, power, or just to kill and destroy stuff, and that's across all media. The thing is, if you've been reading comics for a long time, you get attached to these characters and they become part of the fabric of the universe. We could all agree that Paste Pot Pete sucks, but somewhere out there there's somebody willing to write a dissertation about why he's cool. And frankly, if you've been in publication for 50 years or more, it's likely that you might have had one shining moment. Second, Marvel's done a pretty good job of taking some of their redundant villains and basically made them a little bit more interesting for just a second, or treat them like what they were. On the low end, there's someone like Batroc the Leaper, who I laughed when I heard he would be in the Winter Soldier. But when I saw him and what they did with him, I was like, okay, cool. On the high end, there's people like the Vulture, one of many Spider-Man villains who really just want to steal money. But in this, they gave him a little bit more interesting motivation and background. Really fleshed the character out. If we look at a majority of the Iron Man villains, they're really just dudes in suits who want to kill Iron Man or steal his designs. Ironmonger was interesting, not just because he was close to Tony Stark, but his whole thing was the antithesis of the lesson that Tony had learned. Say what you want about Whiplash, he is infinitely more interesting in the movie than he is in the comics. Go ahead, look up his origin. You don't like Yellow Jacket? Fine, but all he ever was Hank Pym going crazy, basically. Ultron is one that confuses me. I mean, all he's ever been is a robot that wants to destroy humanity. So they basically made him that. He's Skynet with a body and some personality. I am not gonna go through the whole Baron Zemo's plan debate. However, I think he was used much better in Civil War than just being another random cat villain. From where I stand, the most interesting thing about him happened in 1997 when he introduced the Thunderbolts. Third, if you look at the Marvel Universe as a series of individual movies, sure, you could say all the villains aren't great. However, there's plenty single movies that don't have a great villain. The Marvel Universe is a continuing story. I mean, right now, we're at 18 movies, and by the end of this year, there'll be 20 of them. Most movies tend to keep the same villain, or if they get past 3 parts, it's normally about a villain. And once it gets to part 4, a lot of those movies start to suck. The only series that would really be fair to compare the MCU to will be the Bond movies. It's like 25 of them. If you need a great villain in every movie, this isn't a place to go to either. Plenty of the Bond villains are cool, but they're not all necessarily interesting. Once again, like all villains, most of them want to get money, attain power, or take over the world. The one I actually enjoyed the most was Silver from one of the recent movies. I mean, that guy's story, I'm like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. The MCU isn't just a bunch of one-offs. There's a line that starts at the Red Skull and leads us all the way to Thanos and Infinity War. If I ask people to list the movies they don't like in the MCU down in the comments section, probably the same 3 names are going to come up over and over again. That means they produced about 15 movies that range from fair to great. I didn't like Malekith, but frankly, my favorite example of him in the comics is happening right now. And since there are 3 Thor movies that are all part of this bigger universe, I can just look at him as one of the destabilizing events that allow Loki to do more and help push Thor's story forward. Regardless of everything I've said, someone is going to insist that this villain problem needs to be dealt with, and it is a horrible, glaring flaw. What they would ignore is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is actually pretty unprecedented, and the closest thing you could compare it to will be James Bond. And when you watch a James Bond movie, you know exactly what's gonna happen. You're just waiting for the villain to show you what cool stuff they've got, and then James Bond to use his cool stuff. The MCU is a universe. I appreciate the fact that not every story is what happens when this guy goes up against that guy. There have been some very compelling villains, but the thing is, every story has become part of the larger whole and driven the universe forward. Anyway, I'm Amadale78 from Broken Continuity. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.